Everybody was successful, I assume. It's pretty easy to reach success with this, but you've created this wonderful little book, and now we're going to add content to the book. So you have the form, which is the book, and now you're going to add something to the form, which is going to provide, maybe create a story, or just something visually interesting to look at. And the way that I do this is I have them use glue and paste, and they paste things into this. So for this segment, you're going to need your black paper, a scissors, and a glue stick. Sometimes the book folding bone helps, but it's not necessary. So I like to give instructions for this that are really simple, and they're so simple that some students and some teachers think they're a little vague. They're intentionally vague on my part because what I'm looking for is the way students explore possibilities. And I like to tell them, don't think too much. What you want to do is just engage in the process. Follow the rules, but you can be creative too. Your interpretation of the rules is something that is, the rules are open-ended. Your interpretation of them is something that I'm looking forward to seeing. So what we're going to do is the content of our book is going to be a rectangle. And what you're going to do is you're going to create rectangles using this black sheet of paper. If you use up what you have here, I usually supply them with more. What you're going to do is you're going to create rectangles. Now, rectangles can have different sizes, different proportions. So we can create the rectangles by cutting. So I could simply cut this down the short side like this, and I've created a rectangle. If I put it in the book this way, it's taller than it is wide, right? Here's the width, here's your height. But if I put it in the book this way, it's shorter and it's a lot wider. So there's lots of things you can teach students about just the shape and how the shape has a distinct characteristic. Let me show you another way to form a rectangle, and that is to take your fingers and simply tear that rectangle. It isn't as perfect, it isn't as clean an edge, and I like the students to tell me what the difference is. Describe that using an adjective. So some people will say, well, this one's crisp and this one's fuzzy. Or it's torn, it's jagged. So the crisp and jagged. So there's wonderful words that they'll come up with. I also like to tell them that this one looks like it's in focus on all of its edges. This has 3 edges that are in focus and one that's a little fuzzy. So it's just fun ways of playing with language that teach them about the qualities of the shapes that they're going to create. Now you could create that rectangle to have much more drama in the torn mode by tearing the rectangle completely. So in the creation of your rectangles, you can either cut them, you can tear them, or you can do a combination. You can cut and tear them. I also tell them to be aware of the material they're creating, because I've also, in tearing this, I've created some new little rectangles, haven't I? So that's the start. Your theme is going to be rectangles. This gives you an idea of how you can form them. You can make them in any size or proportion you want. But what you're going to do is you're going to work with these rectangles to create the content of your book. I want you to start at the beginning of your book on the cover and simply think about adding 1 or fewer rectangles per page. So that's 1 or fewer rectangles per page. And what you're going to do is work with one page. You're simply going to create that page and then move to the next one. Don't think about the whole book. Think about just one page at a time. So let's get started. I'm going to grab a cover sheet here to protect the surface of my table. And I use this to just keep the glue from getting on the table. And this is another thing that with younger kids or kids who had no experience using a glue stick, it's a great opportunity to teach them how to use a glue stick. Turn your shape over, take the glue stick and outline the edge of your shape, applying the glue in that edge. So I'm going to just take that and glue it to my book. You can use another sheet of paper to protect your fingers when you're pushing that down in place. Got that one done. I'm going to just simply move to the next page. This is the page. There's 2 pages here, or a spread. I want you to consider the pages. I'm going to grab another rectangle or create another rectangle. I think I'll use the torn edge. I did that before. And I'm going to put glue on that one. This can be something that takes some students a very short amount of time. It can sometimes take a long time. When I do it with other teaching artists or students, other teaching artists or people who are very creative, it can take them an hour to make the book because they're putting a lot of thought in it. So I'm not going to work too much further on this because what I want you to do is not copy me. I want you to do something all your own. Generally what I do is I demonstrate the size and proportion bit, and then I give the open-ended directions. And those directions are that your content will be rectangles. You're going to create your rectangles by either cutting or tearing the rectangles. And you're going to use one or fewer rectangles per page in your book. And you're going to place them anywhere on the page. But you're going to work from the cover to the back, doing one page at a time. Don't go back once you've done it. Just keep going through the book until you're finished. There'll be opportunities to return to the books after we get them created, and we're going to have a conversation and look at everybody's books. So grab your black paper and your scissors and your glue stick and have fun adding content to your book. Okay. So I hope you had fun creating your book. I'm just looking at some that were created here. This is something that I never get bored doing, because with the open-ended instructions that I gave and my willingness to just let them have at it, it gives me the opportunity to see where they'll go with those limited instructions. And I encourage creativity. So as you can see, there's a lot of different results. And you might say, well, some of those look like they violated the rules. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. What I do at this point in the project, when everybody's completed one, is we just set them out in a gallery like this. And then I just give them 15 or 20 minutes to walk around and look at each other's work. This is the most exciting part of this project for me. The other things that I just went through in the earlier segments is getting here. This is where the teaching and learning happens for me. They've learned a little bit about the characters and qualities of shape, the characteristics and qualities of shapes. They've learned how to use the materials. They started to add something interesting to their books. And this is the point where it's a great opportunity to get them to talk about their work, so you can hear them talk about their work. It's also an opportunity for them to hear other people talk about their work. I think earlier on, or one of the things that I always talk about, are the 3 conversations that go on in an art making activity, and that is there's these concentric circles. The first one is what's happening in your mind, the conversation you're having with yourself. Are you angry at your antagonist? Is your antagonist sitting on your shoulder telling you that you can't do it, you can't do it? Or were you inspired? Is there a muse singing a song to you and telling you this is what you got to do, this is what you got to do? The second ring in that concentric ring of conversations is the conversation with the materials. And that's, I introduced the materials, there were some limits put on that, gave them the capacity to play with those materials. I want them to just play with the materials and have a conversation, open to a dialogue with those materials. What are the materials telling you to do with them? And when you listen to that, the materials will often tell you what's going to happen. We're now at the point where we're in that third concentric ring of the conversation, and that's where I'm sharing the work that I've created. And we're sharing it as a group. So a lot of times I encourage students to just listen to what other people say about their work. It's a great time for them to see something in their work that they haven't seen. Someone else sees it and they bring it out in a conversation. And then have a dialogue, what do you see together? So it's this great opportunity for your work to live and breathe beyond you just creating it. It's a great opportunity for you to see new possibilities and be projected into new work. As an artist, that's constantly happening to me. What's happening in my studio, I'm always ahead of what I'm doing. It's exciting to be at that point. So this is a great opportunity for you to do that with students. this could go on for a long time, and what I do is I give them as much time as it's necessary for them to experience each other's work. They might sit down with a peer and share it, and it gives me an idea for how I can conduct how I look at the work and talk about the work with them. There's some very specific ways that I do that, and I'm going to touch on those. Let's look at a couple of these. Let me put these down. But let me show you this one. As you can see, this is simply a blank book. And I might feel disappointed in seeing a student do this, but it really does meet the criteria. They used one or fewer rectangles per page. This has fewer than one per page. The book is blank. I think the student that did this, or the individual that did this, when they look at the rest of the results, might feel disappointed, or they might feel, well, I proved a point. So I don't see that as something that happened that didn't work. It works. It's provoking a conversation. We're going there. These other examples, one of the things that I first point out, and I'm looking for this when I'm watching students look at the work, is do they go through it in the sequential order that the pages suggest? So if this is the cover, or is it the back? I mean, there's no words here to help me do that. There's also an orientation. So if I look at this one, it's a blank page on the cover. If I go through, then I open up and I see this continuous rectangle. Now a broken rectangle. And it's not at the top of the page anymore. It's moving down the page. Open the next page. Oh, now it's broken, and they're similar, but they're opposing each other on the page. This is a great opportunity to start talking to students about composition and how, if we go back to this back page, just a simple shape on the page activates that empty white space. It makes that empty white space something that's interesting to look at. There's this space. Is it a positive or a negative space? To me, it looks like it could be a key slot. Like I could pick up a key and slide it in there and open up. So if I turn the book upside down, I'm unlocking the book. I could go through this book and look at it. Now when you get to the point where you've got pages that oppose each other to present a spread, you not only have what you did on the one page, but you have what's on the opposite page. And they interact. This is this is a balanced sort of presentation. One's at the top, one's at the bottom. But what if I turned it this way? How does it read differently? And this is what you really want the students to start exploring and discovering and get excited about when they view these books, is how do these simple gestures on the page, some not so simple as you'll see in some of these other examples, activate this picture plane, activate this rectangular white space? How does that become tall and skinny, or how does it become short and wide? So encourage them to look at the books in different ways. They can even, you can look at it portrait style and just go through it as you would an ordinary book. You could do that, but you could change the sequence of the pages by folding it a different way, folding it shut a different way, which changes the whole sequence. So I'm physically changing the structure of the book. I'm changing the sequence of the pages to change the way that all of the pages work together. Let's look at another one here. Let's look at this one a minute. This one, the student used this rectangle, and the student might say, well, that doesn't look like it follows the rules. It looks like there's two rectangular shapes there, or two shapes there on the page. And what I like to do is turn that back to the student that made it and talk to them about how they justify doing that. I've had students say, well, I started with one rectangle and I just broke it. So I was using one rectangle, but I made it into two pieces. I love hearing them talk about that. So if we look at this one, that theme seems to carry through the book, where there's this broken out rectangle from an existing rectangle. And the way that it moves on the page is something that is exciting. Here it looks like it's just started to break away. Here it looks like it's emerging from the top, or maybe it's going back in. This is all sort of an open-ended conversation that you can have with students. And it gets them to start thinking about how these shapes on the page interact, how all this white space over here sets up tension, and you have this structure over here. Okay, so then what if I change the sequence of that? What if I moved it to this, and we look at it again, and how it changes the relationship of those forms. This was our cover before, now it's in relationship to this other page. And how does that make us feel? Is the shape falling away from this sort of heavy oppressing shape? So that way we're looking at it in portrait mode, but what if we turned it calendar style and looked at it that way? Let's see how it changes and becomes exciting, an exciting new composition to talk about. And that's exactly why this is exciting for me, because students always come up with something new. There are students that take a real sort of, well, this is a simple one. There's one here. Here's the one I was looking for. Let's do the simple one first. So larger shape, so it looks like it could be a door that's shut or open. And then the exciting sort of jumping quality of these. Again, a blank page, which just adds to the tension of the spread. And then the back. So there's a similarity in here that's real consistent. The size and proportion of these is very similar. But what if I changed the direction, the way that we looked at it calendar style? And what if I change the sequence? What if we bury this dark space in the center? We have a blank cover this time. And then we go through, these shapes that were moving freely on the page back and forth are now suddenly confronted with this doorway. Well, but then we go through the doorway and there's still shapes there. And that's exactly what younger students especially will do. They'll start telling a story. And so the magic of this simple gesture is that the form of the book starts to elicit this content. And that's where you could get kids, this is the next step maybe, you could have the kids go through and actually write sentences in this book to start to tell the story. Lots of directions this could go. I wanted to show you this one because this is an example. This one was quite simple. Actually, not so simple. Simple in its structure, and its execution was nicely done. But this one, this person got very creative, and they actually used their rectangles and added some new dimension to the book. So see, we have this page, this new page that's added sort of using the rectangle. They glued a portion of it down and let a side of it flap to form, oh look, we have a white triangle and a black rectangle. So this is a really good example of a student that had experience doing this kind of work, and they took those vague directions that we gave the students and really took it to the moon. And I love that this is successful for all the students. Sure, there's going to be students that are disappointed that they didn't come up with this idea, but haven't we all been there before? It shouldn't discourage us from trying again. We'll take these ideas, this student's ideas, we'll borrow some of those ideas and create a book of our own. Can you imagine yourself doing that? So the other neat thing about this format, this single page format that I really like, and this is another way to talk about the composition, is I can open this entire book up and look at it as a larger composition. You can't do this with all the books, but some of them you can. So I have this really great sort of minimalist painting, black and white. So this is, the magic of this form is in the unpacking. It's really at this point in this whole process that I get very excited about. This is the most exciting point. The rest has been sort of the getting here. And this is where the teaching and learning moments happen, because you listen to your students come up with ideas. They come up with ideas about how to manipulate the form, changing the way we look at it, changing the way that we sequence the pages. And that's the creative time. And allow space for it. This is where it's very exciting.